It's Krusty the criminal. How could it be that a man that brings so much laughter could be an evil criminal genius? Hi, I'm Torin, and welcome to Torin Loves the Simpsons. Today we are looking at Season 1, Episode 12, Krusty Gets Busted, an episode where Krusty robs the Quickie Mart, and Bart eventually proves it wasn't actually Krusty. That sounds like a simple plot, but, well, you'll see. Let's dive in. As always, let's start with the humor. We don't exactly start off strong with a joke about Krusty encouraging kids to threaten suicide if his show got canceled. If you've seen my Homer's Odyssey review, you're aware of how I feel about joking about that particular topic. We won't dwell on it too long, though, because the episode doesn't dwell. It keeps moving right along. We get some nice moments like Patty and Selma's slideshow, including a photo of Selma dropping the photos off to be developed. And we get a couple really great moments in the episode. This exchange between Homer and Bart about mob mentality versus bandwagon, and this moment where Bart pokes his head back into frame to remind Sideshow Bob about Krusty shooting him out of a cannon and Bob's subsequent expression. Those two moments in particular are really fantastic and feel a lot more like the show we know and love. We're starting to get a glimpse past the Season 1 humor stylings, but at this point just a glimpse. And I say that because the episode's humor is overall kinda sparse. There's an overall more lively and slightly wacky vibe to the episode, so it doesn't really feel like a drag compared to some other Season 1 examples, but it doesn't have a whole lot of laughs. But that vibe does help it feel more fleshed out and more similar to the later seasons. While I don't find them particularly funny moments, the over-the-topness of Krusty's oath of loyalty and the heated back and forth between the prosecutor and Krusty are faster-paced and more in-world than a lot of what we've seen in much of the rest of the season so far. I think it's a combination of better voice acting and better character and script writing. This is the first episode directed by Brad Bird, so maybe he has something to do with it, and this is only the second written by Jay Kogen and Wallace Wolodarski, their first being Homer's Odyssey, which, as I discussed in that video, I'm quite confident was one of the first episodes written and produced, so this is the first we've seen from them at a point where the show is fleshed out even a little, so maybe they have something to do with it. But while on The Telltale Head, I remarked that that episode felt like a Season 2 or even Season 3 episode in a lot of ways, this episode really overall feels like it could be from Season 2, except for the animation quality, but even then, this episode is some of the best we've seen all season, and there are some weak Season 2 episodes in that regard, but we'll see soon. That is all to say that while the truly strong comedic moments are few, the rest of the episode doesn't feel weak. I'll give this episode's humor a B+. And now for the plot. While, as already discussed, I don't like the suicide joke, the intro Krusty segment does a phenomenal job of setting things up. It introduces Krusty's motto of, "I didn't do it," which sets Krusty up as a suspicious figure, and which also is used to good effect in the scene at the end of Act 1 where Bart is pulling the string on his talking Krusty doll. Speaking of the Bart scene at the end of Act 1, that scene is honestly more compelling than anything in the previous episode. That's because we have a much more personal and fleshed out setup of Bart. From the Krusty merch in Bart's room and his mention of Krusty being his hero, it's quite established that Bart stands Krusty, and even in just one act, we get a much deeper emotional examination of Bart. There's a really excellent hint early on when Bart remarks about the size of Krusty's feet. If you're really paying close attention, you might notice that exonerating detail on your first watch of the episode, but it's one of those things that's so subtle until it isn't. When I did my first rewatch of the episode for this review, I noticed something that at first I thought was odd, but then when I thought about it, it actually made perfect sense. So, during the robbery scene, when Homer first steps on Sideshow Bob's foot, Bob's reaction doesn't sound like Krusty. It sounds like a cross between Marvin Monroe and Mr. Largo, who are both Harry Shearer characters. So, fun fact, I'm pretty sure Harry Shearer actually voiced Sideshow Bob's first line, then Dan Castellaneta for the actual robbery, then Kelsey Grammer as the third and final person to voice Bob. So when I first noticed that, I thought it was a production mistake. And maybe it was, but it actually makes sense because when Bob demands the money from Apu, he's more able to plan his speech and deliver his Krusty impression on his own terms, whereas his first line is in surprised response to Homer stepping on his foot, so it was much less on Bob's terms when he delivered that line. So it makes sense that he'd deliver a weaker Krusty impression. If that was deliberate, that's excellent attention to detail on the part of the production staff. And if it was a production mistake, what a fortuitous one. Also, we later on get to see more use of Sideshow Bob's ability to mimic other people's voices in Sideshow Bob's Last Gleaming. Who knows, maybe that gag was written as a post hoc explanation of how Bob could have impersonated Krusty so well, but whatever the case may be, it's always cool to see the times the early seasons and later seasons are consistent with each other. We also get a really solid Springfield frenzy in this episode. In this regard, I'd say this episode is outdone by the Telltale Head just a little bit, but this one is a much smaller component of the plot, and it's pretty great for what it is. I really love the scene where Bob chats with Bart on his show, particularly the moment Bart hears big shoes to fill and realizes Bob is guilty, and I love how that moment is paced and framed. The echo of big shoes to fill as it cuts closer and closer to Bart as he runs the evidence through his head brings just the right suspense before the climax of the confrontation. And this is the most important plot of Season 1. It made Sideshow Bob a star, and set in motion his entire story arc that would go on to fuel various other episodes, many of them absolute classics. It's also a decent introduction to Krusty as more than just a vague figure in the background. This is his first appearance where he actually has an impact on the plot. And while there's plenty to his characterization that isn't yet established, what we do get of him so far all clocks pretty well. You could say that he seems a little overly genuine in his appreciation for Bart at the end, because we see in later plots that Krusty doesn't remember Bart, but Krusty is a slick and charismatic public figure, and he knows how to talk a PR-friendly talk, so it's still perfectly in character for him to sing Bart's praises in public even when we know he goes on to completely forget about the whole thing. Whether looking at it through a lens focused on the episode in isolation, or one focused on its context in the series, this plot is a classic. It's really a culmination of everything the show has learned during the course of producing the first season, and I can happily give this plot an S. A couple other quick things to note. There's a quick moment that gets retconned later, when the substitute news anchor mentions Krusty's show being on a rival station. In Bart Gets Famous, it's shown that Krusty and Kent Brockman work out of the same studio, and it's labeled Channel 6, so it looks to me like they're on the same station. Also, this episode has White Lou again, for the last time, as his next appearance is with the correct skin color and the wrong voice in Bart vs. Thanksgiving. And now, for the final rating. We have a B+ for humor and an S for plot. And this is certainly more a plot-based episode, but not quite enough to get up to S tier, so I'm giving this episode an A+. I really want to put this episode in S tier because of how important it is, but it's just not quite there. Even if this isn't my highest rated or favorite episode of the season, I do think it's the most important to the series, and probably the one that people in general are most familiar with from Season 1, due to its direct impact on other plots later on. For that, we can give this episode the title of Honorary S tier, even if it doesn't quite make it otherwise. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and ring the notifications bell. Up next, we are looking at what is both the first and the last episode of the season, Some Enchanted Evening. I will see you in that video.